'98, I began to notice just a little bit of tree decline on the property here. I began to notice that some trees didn't look as healthy, and I started to worry about that. In the beginning, when I first began to see, notice the jets, I would see one, and then I would see some white haze, but I never did take notice of really any notice other than some irritation when we hazed out. However, I can say that when I saw this particular day, and I began to pay attention, I could hardly drive straight, and I had to pull over all the time just to be able to look at these jets and say, look, this is not normal. I think that there were a lot of jets flying that day because there were many going in the same direction, leaving parallel lines. And in subsequent days, I would see many jets flying where the lines were parallel, and there would be 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 all leaving trails at one time. So then it became identifying how long these trails persisted, filming them over time to see how much they expanded, how large someone got. We looked at the black contrails, we looked at the jets themselves, and odd behavior of jets. The configuration on the jets was absolutely terrible because all these agencies were saying it was increasing jet traffic. And yet we could tell from the flight patterns that we got from the FAA that a lot of the flights were not were military. They weren't normal flight patterns. Persistent jet contrails that persist and stay in the environment for up to 20 hours. This is like geoengineering. It means that you're artificially, man-made in some way, changing our environment. The interesting part of geoengineering is that it's now being proposed as a way to put particulates in the atmosphere so that we can stop the direct sunlight from reaching the Earth. Geoengineering means something that you're going to do in the atmosphere that would not normally be happening on any normal type of basis. In other words, a volcano would be normal. The particulates coming up from a volcano, for example, would be a normal phenomenon, and then we would take whatever consequences comes from that. However, when you start taking and talking about, as Holdren is, he's Obama's science advisor, talking about taking care of global warming, in other words, by putting particles in the air, like sulfur or some other particles, then that means that we're going to take some action where we're going to try to interfere with some normal processes that are going on. And the problem with this, for example, with sulfur, is that sulfur, in the sense of it, we took it out of diesel fuel in California in 2006, and we said we have to clean it up because kids get asthma from sulfur, lots of health problems associated with too much sulfur in diesel fuel. We take it out of diesel fuel, and then someone comes along, like Paul Crutzen, and he says, we're going to put it up in the atmosphere to obscure the sunlight, so less sunlight reaches the Earth, and therefore that will cool us down. But what about the health effects? If you have to take it out of diesel fuel, then my question is, why are you going to put up something that's not helpful into the atmosphere and try to change the process that we live under? And that's what geoengineering is. It's taking something and you're going to artificially induce something into our environment that's going to change for some reason. For example, stopping global warming or slowing it down. Put in more cloud cover, you're going to lower crop production. And they know this from University of Illinois corn crop studies, that if you have normal rainfall but you have more cloud cover, crop production drops. In areas where you had direct sunlight mixed with normal weather, then you would have increased crop production. So just putting and saying that these are ice crystals and water vapor, it's benign in the environment, not true, because it can heat us up. It can change the amount of sunlight reaching the Earth, so it can affect the health of crops, health of your trees, because without photosynthesis, trees and plants can't grow strong enough to produce. And you need all of this. So to say that we're going to cut off the sunlight by either geoengineering or through allowing these persistent jet contrails to keep persisting, what we're saying is we're changing our climate, we're doing a geoengineering project, and it's going to have consequences on our food supply. Any chemicals added would have consequences on our water supply. So there's a broad impact here. So whether I know if jets are spraying anything in particular, What I do know is that they're already harming the environment, and that there's a lot of studies that talk about the impact in coming years will be tremendous. I think it's actually the underlying cause of all of this and some of the funding is military funding. Because the military wants to be able to control the weather. The military has got an agenda that if they control the weather, they can control any country to make it do whatever they want. And many documents, Owning the Weather 2025, there's several documents in which they talk about how rather than having some weapons of mass destruction, in other words bombs or something, if they could control the weather in a country, they could actually force them and say, look, we will put you in drought, we will put you in floods.
The death dumps, otherwise known as chemical trails, are being dropped and sprayed throughout the United States, in England, Scotland, Ireland, Northern Europe, and I have personally seen them not only in the United States but in Mexico and Canada. Birds are dying around the world. Fish are dying by the hundreds of thousands around the world. This is genocide. This is poison. This is murder by the United Nations. This element within our society that's doing this must be stopped. I happen to know of 2 of the locations where the airplanes are that dump this crap on us. 4 of the planes are out of the Air National Guard, Lincoln, Nebraska, and the other planes are out of Fort Still, Oklahoma. I personally have observed the planes that were standing still in Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska, at the Air National Guard. They have no markings on them. They're huge, bomber-like airplanes with no markings. This is a crime. Crime against humanity, crime against America, crime against the citizens of this great country. They must be stopped. What is wrong with Congress? This has an effect on their population and their people and their friends and their relatives and themselves. What's wrong with them? What's wrong with the pilots who are flying these airplanes? They're dumping this crap, this poison, on their own families. Somebody has to do something about it. Somebody in Congress has to step forward and stop it now. Thank you. I'm Ted Gunderson.
Guten Abend, liebe Zuschauer. Der strenge Frost ist erstmal vorbei, aber es bleibt noch kühl bei uns. 0 Grad Höchsttemperatur oder etwas darüber morgen in Mitteleuropa. Den haben wir heute gehabt, vor allen Dingen hier in Sachsen-Anhalt, in Brandenburg, im Moment noch in Berlin, Potsdam, auch noch Leipzig ist dabei. Dieses Regengebiet, das wird langsam weiter nach Osten ziehen, teilweise wird Schnee draus. Hier im Süden, da ist es nur noch Schnee und dann haben wir noch etwas, was wir nicht als Regen oder Schnee identifizieren können. Hier im Westen diese Schlangenlinien, das haben wahrscheinlich am Nachmittag über der Nordsee ein paar Flugzeuge, Militärflugzeuge rausgebracht und in etwa 5 bis 6 Kilometer Höhe, hat mit Wetter so nichts zu tun. Ja, wie geht's weiter? Nachts Frost. Da ist es nur noch Schnee und dann haben wir noch etwas, was wir nicht als Regen oder Schnee identifizieren können. Hier im Westen diese Schlangenlinien, das haben wahrscheinlich am Nachmittag über der Nordsee ein paar Flugzeuge, Militärflugzeuge rausgebracht und in etwa 5 bis 6 Kilometer Höhe, hat mit
sleeping dead right now.
I'm gonna put this on YouTube. I'm gonna put this on YouTube.
You videoing right now? Oh God, don't video right now.
It's like it's spraying out of the top of his wings.